Hi everybody, this is Stephen Pugh of the Home Bible College. I want to do another video in the series on the Pastors Course. This is video number 25. We're halfway through the course at this stage. There'll be 50 lectures altogether. They're only mini lectures, as I'm sure you know, but these little mini lectures are far-reaching. They may not be very long, but the questions may need an awful lot of thinking about, and those of you that are pastors will find these questions and these sessions very challenging, I'm sure. So video number 25 is E, and the particular phrase is keep your mind learning by having an interest in lots of subjects. I'll read that again. Keep your mind learning by having an interest in lots of subjects. Now then, I don't recommend that you try to interest yourself in boring subjects. That's going to be fairly pointless, okay? One of the things that I've discovered is that those that are filled with the Spirit are stimulated to have a burning desire to learn. I don't know whether you've noticed that. When people become saved or when people are restored to the Lord, one of the things that's very common is that they very often will have a great desire to improve themselves, to learn new things, to go to the library and to read books, to go to seminars and listen to lectures, to read their Bible avidly. I know people that have sat down before now and read the whole Bible just like that, straight off. You know, I knew a man many years ago, a man so blessed by the Lord that he sat down and in a matter of a week, he read a 15-piece encyclopedia. Of course, I don't suppose he was reading every word. He just flicked through to look for those things that caught his eye and he found interesting. What the Lord does is he wakes us up to the world around us. You know, that famous hymn, something, how does it go? Something lives in every hue Christless eyes have never seen. You know, when you look around the world, you see it in full colour. You see the bloom of flowers. You realise that you're looking at what God has created, and you hear the birds, and you see the grass, and you see the sea, or you see the beautiful clouds, and you're spiritually stimulated. And one of the areas in which you're stimulated is in your brain. There's a great interest develops. Pastors need to not just be stuck in the Bible, reading it, but they must read widely and become genuinely interested in a host of subjects. You know, when C.H. Spurgeon died, his library was eventually, as it were, discovered. It was a private library, and was found to have a very large section of books about nature and history and commerce and politics and science. You know, this was a man that was well read. This was a man that understood and had a great interest in the world around him. And perhaps this is why he was so broad in his teaching, so grounded in his teaching, and so balanced in his views. That's the man. And I know another man who set up his own personal education program, which opened up to himself the vast range of literature that was available in the local libraries. Okay, see, in the libraries of the world, they're free, of course, and billions of people have set themselves the task of educating themselves from the free libraries of the world. One of my heroes, Harold St. John, he didn't have the joy of being able to afford to go to university, but that didn't hold him back. Here was a man filled with the Spirit, and what he would do is in his lunch hour he would go down the streets hurriedly and he'd find the library and he'd take half a dozen of the books under one arm and half a dozen under another arm, and he'd come back and he would fill his mind with all of the knowledge that this world had for him. He had interests in poetry, in music, in language, in countries of the world. He could tell you the names of birds. He could hear their song. He was interested in botany. He was interested in animal husbandry. He was interested in medicine. Do you know, this man was amazing. This man was amazing. And it brought to him a tremendous wealth of knowledge that could then be used by the Lord in his ministry, in the preaching of the word. So pray about it and ask the Lord to guide you into how you might become much more well-read and informed pastor. Okay? We have a system in the Home Bible College. We call it the Encyclopedia of Knowledge, where each month we have a particular topic for the month, and we go through all the topics that you would find in the whole of a library. And each month we say, right, forget about all those sections. This time, in this month, we're going to look at science. We're going to discover what science is and technology. And we're going to inform ourselves, and we'll read a book about it. And we will read something that we find, if we find it's boring, we put it down and find another one that we find interesting. And that's the point, you see, is that we inform ourselves. Do you know that when the Apostle Paul wrote to Timothy, he said in 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 13, he said, until I come, give attendance to reading. Give attendance to reading. Now then, reading what? Just the Bible? Just the New Testament? The Old Testament too? Well, we don't really know. But what the Apostle Paul does say is this. He says, listen, you need to be a reader. You need to be a reader. You need to be a man of reading. We're not talking about reading the latest novel. What we're talking about is reading for knowledge, for interest. When we read the scriptures, we find that men of God were well educated with the literature of the world in which they lived. Paul, preaching on Mars Hill, quotes the poets. He quotes the poets and the philosophers of his day. He was a well-read man. So then, here's the questions. Here's the questions for you, pastors. How widely do you read? Do you read about science? Do you read about music and maths and geography and history and logic and language? And I could go on and on. What are your interests outside of the scriptures, outside of the church? What interests do you have that go beyond that? What do you read when you've got nothing to do? And you say, well, I've never got nothing to do, Stephen. I understand. You work and you work and work, but there comes time when you need to relax. There comes time when you need to relax your mind. What do you turn to then? Do you just sit and watch the telly? I mean, you can watch the telly, there's nothing wrong with that. But the important thing is this, is to learn to feed our minds with interesting things. This world is packed full of enough to occupy the mind of any man all his life. And there's the beauty and there's the handiwork of God to see. Are you an expert in any area separate to your ministry? No? Why not? I mean, some of you have a ministry, some of you have to have a job to go along with your ministry. So you need to become an expert in that area in which you earn your living. That's where you need to have the expertise. You see, I wrote a book many years ago. It's called the ABC, what they didn't teach you in Sunday school. Okay? One of the things that comes out in there is you need to attain an overall knowledge of all knowledge. You need to have a little bit of knowledge about everything, and then you need to have all the knowledge about one thing. That's the thing. And you need to not only understand how everything is, but you need to understand where your particular field is to an expert level. Now, let me ask you another question. Have you availed yourself of your local library system? Now, some of you may be in cities in which there's half a dozen libraries. I mean, in England, we have the British Museum, we have the British Library. What a great experience that would be, to go to the British Library and have a look at, I don't know, the Codex Sinaiticus. Go and have a look at, Mark's Gospel in its original writing. Go up to Liverpool to the John Rylands library and have a look at some of the codexes, some of those original copies of the scripture. You say, well, that's just the scriptures. Yes, but there's lots of other things to see in a library, lots of other things to learn. Do you know your way around the library that's near you? Would you be able to find the sections in the library and understand where things are kept? And lastly, do you borrow books to read them? Most libraries will let you borrow books. My local library will let you borrow 4 books at a time. They expect them to come back within a fortnight, and that's okay. But you can borrow 4 books at a time. You haven't got to buy every book to read. You can borrow books to read. That's a great thing. Every pastor should have interests. If your interest is in fishing, if your interest is in botany, if your interest is in painting, if your interests are in music, go to the library. Take the books, bring them home, learn. You've got a whole world out there to learn, and that enriches you. It enriches you as a person far beyond just being a pastor. So there we are. We look forward to catching up with you next time. Have a great day, and bye-bye for now.